The inside of the trunk lid is now reinforced as well. Please note that the foam was filed at about a 45-degree angle, just sanded down, so that no air pockets would fit or form around the foam, the perimeter of the foam. Air tends to form anywhere where there's a 90-degree angle, and so I recommend that you bevel all edges of foam or whatever sandwich core that you're using, just so that you get the best bond possible. The fabric then has a nice, the ability to make just a nice gentle contour over the up and down areas of the foam. But this thing is amazingly stiff and very light, and I'll trim it up and it'll all fit in place. At this point I'm modifying the trunk lid. What I tried yesterday didn't work out so well, so I'm actually just replacing the foam. And this is working real slick, so I thought I'd show it. Just breaking off pieces. I'll sand them on my sanding block. Put the knife down. And I'll glue them before I get them finally into place. But it just right back into place, and there aren't too many materials that I know of that you could do a repair procedure quite so easily. My final preparation before putting the fiberglass skin on the inside of this whole trunk section is to radius this new edge that I've produced. Again, fiberglass doesn't go around 90-degree angles very well, so anywhere where you can bevel something, I highly recommend it. Obviously this foam works very easily. Corners disappear in seconds.
The drip rail needs to be fully supported, so that means adding fiberglass reinforcement. I first tipped the trunk on its side so gravity would help hold the fabric in place. Next, I hot coated the foam and plywood. I'm using pre-cut strips of 4-ounce fabric as the initial layers on the lip. 2 layers will actually be applied before any 10 ounce is added. A full-size piece of 10-ounce fabric is then added to cover the entire inner wall of the trunk. This will also drape over the drip rail to add extra strength and create a seamless inner appearance. When the entire housing has been skinned, I will make the final modification to make the trunk seal functional.
I'm now going to finish out the weather stripping seal or lip. I'm just going to cut and trim away the foam, running a razor knife right along the edge of the trunk opening itself. Just using a chisel now to remove the material in large sections. It's coming out easily without damaging the good foam along the side here. What I'll have to do is go along and re-skin that with fiberglass on the inside so there is no exposed foam, but it's creating the exact cavity that I was hoping for.
I'm skinning using 4-ounce again. 2 layers are all that are necessary to keep out the elements. Notice that I switched to a 1-inch brush due to the narrow working space. I trimmed this lip with a razor knife, but I still need to sand it. Actually, I'm sanding off a 1/4 inch so the trunk will still close with the rubber seal in place.
I'm now going to prepare the surface, the back of the tea bucket, for bonding the roadster back to it. I've marked a line that's about 2 inches beyond where the tail section fits in. And I'm going to just mechanically abrade it. I've got 80 grit sandpaper on the back of this. I'm going to grind it down. I'm going to valley out a taper slightly. It's going to be deeper toward the roadster section. As it fans out into the body, it will become shallower. And again, I'm just wearing good safety equipment.
Although it is 90 degrees, I still find it more comfortable to be completely covered during grinding. I'm not that sensitive to the dust, but I prevent exposure wherever I can. People who are extremely sensitive can apply baby powder to their skin. This makes grinding more comfortable. The belt sander cuts into the surface quickly. It removes surface contaminants and leaves behind large 80 grit scratches for the bonding resin to adhere to. I've begun by gouging deeply into the bucket near where the trunk will attach. As I move to the edges, my cut becomes shallower. This is referred to as scarf sanding and will later permit me to add extra fiberglass material to the joint on the outside of the bucket without creating a bulge. Along the top of the bucket, I am just removing enough material to expose a good bonding surface. The entire back of the bucket will look like this before I am finished. As you can see, my grinding was thorough. I actually extended my taper 4 inches from the bonding site in order to get a smooth transition later. Consider this the minimum surface preparation before any fiberglass bonding application.
I'm now going to mix batches of milled glass fiber. It's a putty filler resin. It's got some structural strength due to the fiber in it. Mixing a half pint with 5 cc's. It's a little hotter than usual, but the filler content will actually distribute or diffuse some of the hardening agent, and you need a little bit more. Notice I mix the resin and the hardener together first before I begin to fill it with the, this is 1/32 milled glass fiber. Takes quite a bit to fill this.
I recommend using a squeegee because it can quickly apply the adhesive to the site and spread it. Leave extra material in any deep holes in the foam. It will be squeezed out later. Spread the adhesive over the entire surface to be bonded.
I'm working in with pretty firm pressure, so it'll bond well with the hot coated foam, the plywood.
We slid the new trunk up against the bucket, aligned our marks to ensure the fit, and squeezed. The two parts make good contact, forcing out the excess adhesive. Working simultaneously, Rob is screwing drywall screws into the plywood templates for more clamping pressure, while I am creating fillets in the adhesive using a rounded end of a mixing stick. The first step to externally reinforcing the joint is to thoroughly wet out the bonding area. The first layer of reinforcement is 1.5 ounce chopped strand mat. I chose this because it promotes adhesion well in the scarfed areas, and the torn mat strips conform easily to the contours. After 2 layers of mat were on, we applied the first of 3 strips of 4 ounce fabric. The 4 ounce is nice because it is very flexible and quite dense. It's a good compromise for this area. A 1/2 by 3 inch groove saturation roller works well for compressing the patch and leveling the trunk. It is just the right diameter for forcing air out of the contour where the rear meets the bucket. More of the 4 ounce fabric strips are laid down the sides of the bucket and saturated. A gentle stippling action is all that is needed to work the resin into the delicate fabric. Notice how the fiberglass has filled the scarfed area, leaving a gentle, smooth transition between the two parts. The first step in cosmetic finishing is to sand the entire surface so the primers and fillers will stick. I'm using a dual action or DA sander with 80 grit paper to scuff the surface. When you get to the corners, the DA will tend to sand even quicker, so watch carefully that you don't cut too deeply through the fiberglass. Firm pressure is all that is necessary to get the desired results. This shot shows how well the entire surface has been sanded. The DA is great for leveling high spots, and as you can see, most of the surface is quite even. However, it won't be perfect at this stage because low spots still need to be filled.